What if I told you that your age isn't measured in years, but in the snap of your aorta? Most seniors never see their 80s because their arteries have transitioned from flexible life pipes into brittle stone pipes. But this isn't a life sentence. There is a singular arterial correction, a shift from stiffness back to youth that can change your biological destiny. However, to achieve that one correction, we have to clear 5 specific roadblocks that are currently rusting your system. We're starting that process right now.
Now, you might be wondering, Dr. Ben, how can one single correction fix decades of wear and tear? It's because your vascular system isn't a collection of separate parts. It's one continuous living fabric. And when you restore its ability to stretch, everything else begins to fall into place. But here's the catch. You can't achieve that correction if your system is blocked by 5 specific biological roadblocks, ones most people develop after the age of 50. Today, I'm going to walk you through each one, from the stone pipe effect to the sugar coating of your arteries, and give you a simple daily protocol to start clearing them out. By the end of this video, you won't just understand your heart, you'll have a 90-day blueprint to start rewriting your biological age. So let's start. The first roadblock, and this is the one that silently ages people faster than anything else. The name, the stone pipe problem. The visual metaphor. Imagine your arteries like a soft, flexible garden hose. When water flows through it, it expands gently. It adapts. It absorbs pressure. Now imagine that same hose left out in the sun for years until it hardens. It doesn't bend anymore. It doesn't flex. It starts to feel like concrete. That's exactly what happens inside your body. Over time, your arteries don't just age, they calcify. Calcium, which should be strengthening your bones, starts embedding itself into your arterial walls. Your flexible life pipes slowly turn into rigid stone pipes. The science, simplified. Here's the critical shift. Your body loses control of where calcium goes. Instead of staying in your bones, where it keeps you strong, it begins depositing into soft tissues, especially your arteries. This process is called vascular calcification, and it's one of the strongest predictors of cardiovascular aging. Now, here's why that's dangerous. The impact. Every time your heart beats, it sends out a pressure wave. Healthy arteries absorb that wave. They expand slightly, cushioning the force. But stone pipes can't expand. So that pressure has nowhere to go. It rebounds straight back to your heart like a shock wave. Over time, your heart muscle thickens just to handle that pressure, and eventually it begins to fail. Not because it's weak, but because it's been overworked for years against rigid, unyielding arteries. That's why this isn't just about calcium, it's about mechanical stress on your entire cardiovascular system. The solution. So how do we reverse this? We don't just remove calcium. The body doesn't work that way. Instead, we activate a very specific protein. Think of it as your internal traffic controller. MGP, matrix GLA protein. Its job is simple but critical. Pull calcium out of your arteries, redirect it back into your bones. But here's the catch. MGP is useless unless it's activated. The way to the solution. And this is where most people get it wrong. They take calcium, they take vitamin D3, but they forget the one nutrient that actually tells calcium where to go. Vitamin K2, specifically MK7. If vitamin D3 is what helps you absorb calcium, then K2 is the GPS system that directs it. Without K2, calcium can end up in the wrong places, like your arteries. With K2, you begin to reclaim control of that process. That's why a daily intake of around 180 micrograms of vitamin K2, MK7, becomes your first real step in destoning your arteries,
restoring flexibility where rigidity has taken over. But even if you start clearing the stone from your pipes, there's another hidden problem. Because stiffness isn't just about calcium, it's also about what's happening on the surface of your arteries. They can become rough, inflamed, almost sticky. And that brings us to the next roadblock, the rusting problem. Now that we've started clearing the stone from your pipes, there's another layer most people never think about, and it's just as dangerous. Inside your arteries is a lining so delicate it's thinner than a human hair. It's called the endothelium, and when it's healthy, it acts like a smooth, non-stick surface that allows blood to glide effortlessly. But under constant inflammation, driven by poor diet, stress, high blood sugar, that lining begins to oxidize. Think of it like rust forming inside a metal pipe. What was once smooth becomes rough, irritated, and sticky. And this is where things take a serious turn. That rusted surface starts behaving like biological Velcro. LDL cholesterol, which normally passes through your bloodstream, now gets trapped on these rough patches. Over time, it builds, hardens, and turns into plaque. This is why some people with normal cholesterol levels still end up with heart attacks. The issue isn't just the cholesterol, it's the condition of the surface it's moving through. If the pipes are rusty, things stick. So instead of just focusing on lowering numbers, we have to restore the surface. We have to make those arteries smooth again, almost like waxing a car so nothing clings to it. And we do that by flooding the endothelium with powerful plant compounds called polyphenols. These act like anti-rust agents, neutralizing oxidative damage right at the source and helping that inner lining regain its slick, protective quality. A simple place to start? Your morning. Adding a half cup of blueberries or a small serving of pomegranate seeds gives your body a dose of elagitannins, specialized polyphenols that form a kind of protective shield over that delicate lining. It's a small habit, but it directly targets one of the most overlooked causes of arterial aging. Now, here's the catch. Your arteries can be de-stoned and even de-rusted, but they can still fail to relax when your body needs them to, because there's a missing signal, a chemical message your body may no longer be producing efficiently. And that's the next roadblock we need to fix, the loss of your artery's natural relaxation signal. Now that we've started clearing the stone from your pipes, there's another layer most people never think about, and it's just as dangerous. Inside your arteries is a lining so delicate it's thinner than a human hair, called the endothelium. When inflammation runs high, whether from blood sugar spikes, stress, or poor diet, this lining begins to oxidize. Think of it like rust forming inside a pipe. What was once smooth and slippery becomes rough, irritated, and sticky. And that's where the real trouble begins. This rusted surface turns into what you can think of as biological Velcro. LDL cholesterol, which might otherwise pass through harmlessly, now gets trapped, builds up, and eventually hardens into plaque. That's why some people with normal cholesterol levels still suffer heart attacks. The issue isn't just what's in the blood, it's the condition of the surface it's flowing through. So instead of only chasing cholesterol numbers, we need to restore the lining itself. We need to wax the pipes, making them smooth and resistant again. And we do that by saturating the endothelium with powerful polyphenols, plant compounds that neutralize oxidative damage right where it starts. A simple place to begin is your morning routine. A half cup of blueberries or a serving of pomegranate seeds delivers elagitannins, potent compounds that act like a protective shield for that fragile inner lining. It's a small shift, but it directly targets one of the most overlooked drivers of arterial aging.
But even if your arteries are no longer stone and no longer rusty, they can still stay locked in a dangerous state, tight, rigid, and unable to relax. And that brings us to the next roadblock.
This is where things become less visible, but far more dangerous. Your arteries aren't just passive tubes, they're designed to breathe. With every heartbeat, they expand and relax in rhythm, and that flexibility is controlled by a tiny but powerful gas called nitric oxide. Think of nitric oxide as the signal that tells your arteries, relax, open, let the blood flow. But here's the reality. By the time most people reach their 70s, their natural production of this gas has dropped dramatically, often by as much as 75%. Now, imagine what happens when that signal disappears. Your arteries don't fully relax anymore. They stay slightly clenched, like a fist that never completely opens. This constant state of tension creates a chronic pressure buildup inside your system. And that pressure surge is one of the main reasons so many seniors experience sudden cardiovascular events. It's not just blockage, it's the inability of the arteries to respond and adapt in real time. So, how do we fix this if the body's internal system is failing? We take a different route. Instead of relying only on your body's declining ability to produce nitric oxide, we bypass the system entirely using what's called the salivary pathway. This is a backup mechanism where certain vegetables provide natural nitrates, which are then converted step by step into nitric oxide inside your body. And this is where the strategy becomes surprisingly simple. Foods like arugula and beets are loaded with these natural nitrates. When you eat them, your body begins converting them into that critical arterial relaxation signal. But there's a hidden rule almost no one talks about, and this is crucial. Those nitrates must first be processed by beneficial bacteria on your tongue. If you regularly use antibacterial mouthwash, you're wiping out the very microbes responsible for that conversion. In other words, you could be eating all the right foods and still missing the benefit entirely. So the shift is simple but powerful. Include nitrate-rich foods like arugula or beets daily and avoid antibacterial mouthwash so your body can actually complete the process. That's how you restore your arteries' ability to relax, bringing back the natural rhythm they were designed for. Now we've dealt with stone, rust, and stiffness, but there's another hidden factor that quietly damages your arteries every single day, and most people trigger it without even realizing it. Stick with me, because this next one might be the most surprising of all. Now, here's a form of damage that doesn't just sit on the surface of your arteries, it actually locks them into stiffness from the inside out. Think about what happens when you heat sugar in a pan. It melts, thickens, and then turns into hard caramel. Sticky, rigid, unforgiving. That's essentially what's happening inside your body when blood sugar stays elevated. This process is called glycation. Excess glucose begins to bind to proteins in your arterial walls, caramelizing them over time. What should be flexible, living tissue starts to behave like something cooked and hardened. And the impact is deeper than most people realize. These sugar-protein reactions create what are known as crosslinks, tiny molecular bonds that fuse your arterial fibers together. Imagine taking a fresh rubber band and slowly baking it in an oven. At first, it stretches normally, but over time, it dries out, loses its elasticity, and eventually snaps under pressure. That's exactly what glycation does to your arteries. They lose their snap, their ability to expand and recoil. And once that elasticity is gone, your entire cardiovascular system operates under strain. So the goal here isn't just to avoid sugar in a general sense, it's to interrupt the process before that damage can happen. We need to clear glucose out of the bloodstream quickly, before it has a chance to bond with your tissues and create those stiffening crosslinks. And this is where one of the simplest, most overlooked habits becomes incredibly powerful: the 10-minute post-meal walk. Right after you eat, your blood sugar begins to rise, But when you move your muscles, even lightly, your body starts pulling that glucose out of the bloodstream and into your muscle cells, where it can be used for energy instead of causing damage. It's like redirecting traffic before it causes a pileup. This isn't about intense exercise. It's about timing. A short walk after meals acts like a metabolic reset, preventing that sugar from ever turning into arterial damage in the first place. It's one of the easiest ways to protect the flexibility you're working so hard to restore. But even if you prevent sugar from stiffening your arteries, there's still one more hidden force that can quietly keep them inflamed and dysfunctional at the deepest level. And this final roadblock is the one that ties everything together. Even after addressing stone, rust, stiffness, and sugar damage, there's one more consequence most people never see coming, and it's happening with every single heartbeat. When your large arteries lose their flexibility, they can no longer absorb the force of blood being pumped out of your heart. Instead of cushioning that pressure, they pass it forward, unchanged, unfiltered, straight into the smallest, most delicate vessels in your body. Think of it like a shock wave traveling through a rigid pipe system with no buffer. And where does that force end up? In the tiny vessels of your brain and kidneys. The impact is subtle at first, but deeply damaging over time. These fragile microvessels aren't built to handle that kind of pressure. They begin to wear down, lose function, and slowly fail. This is what drives what many people call normal aging, the gradual decline in kidney efficiency, the creeping mental fog, the slower recall. But this isn't just aging, it's repeated vascular trauma happening silently in the background, day after day. So the solution isn't just about fixing the big arteries. We have to protect the entire vascular network by dampening that pressure wave. We need to help the system relax at a deeper level, especially the smooth muscle cells that line your blood vessels from top to bottom. And this is where one simple, often overlooked mineral becomes incredibly powerful: magnesium. Specifically, magnesium glycinate. Magnesium acts like nature's built-in calcium channel blocker. It helps regulate the contraction and relaxation of your sasudi, allowing them to stay loose instead of tense. Taken before bed, around 400 milligrams, it supports your body's natural overnight recovery process, relaxing the vascular system, reducing internal pressure, and giving those delicate vessels a chance to reset. It's not dramatic, it's not instant, but over time, it creates a quieter, smoother flow through your entire system, protecting the organs that matter most. Now that we've removed the stone, cleared the rust, restored the signal, prevented the sugar damage, and dampened the pressure, we can finally bring all of this together. Because none of these fixes work in isolation. They only work when combined into one simple daily rhythm: the true arterial correction. Now this is where everything clicks, because none of these changes work in isolation. The real arterial correction happens when they operate together, like a system. The K2 helps redirect calcium and soften the stone. The polyphenols smooth out the rust. The nitrates restore your artery's ability to relax. The post-meal walks prevent sugar from hardening your tissues. And magnesium dampens the pressure wave while you sleep. This isn't a list. It's a coordinated reset of your entire vascular system. But here's the truth most people need to hear. This doesn't happen overnight. Arterial tissue takes time to remodel. It's living tissue, and it responds gradually. That's why you need to think in terms of a 90-day window. If you commit to this protocol consistently, you can begin to see measurable shifts, especially in your blood pressure, in about 12 weeks. Not because of a quick fix, but because you've removed the 5 roadblocks that were aging your arteries in the first place. So here's how you start. Tomorrow morning, keep it simple. Before anything else, Drink about 16 ounces of water. Then add a handful of arugula to your breakfast, or alongside it. And remember the hidden rule. Skip the antibacterial mouthwash so your body can actually convert those nitrates into that critical relaxation signal. That's your entry point. That's how you begin the arterial correction. And now, I want to hear from you. How old are you today? And what is one health goal you want to achieve by your 85th birthday? Drop it in the comments. Because this isn't just about information. It's about building a group of people who refuse to follow the usual trajectory, who are actively working to outperform it.
I'm Dr. Ben Lown, and I'll see you in the next video.